A little dark through here.
Yeah.
All right, we are beginning Genesis 21, 1. And we're still on Abraham. God has told him and Sarah, their names have been changed from Abram to Abraham, Sarai to Sarah. You're going to have a child. And they both go, all right. And so we're now at Genesis 21, verse 1. And this talks about the birth of Isaac, their child. So, verse 1 says, the Lord took note of Sarah, as he said, and the Lord did for Sarah as he had promised, because God always keeps his promises. So Sarah conceived and bore a son to Abraham in his old age, at the appointed time of which God had spoken to him. Abraham called the name of his son who was born to him, whom Sarah born to him. Notice it clarifies who the mama is. Isaac. Biblically, I don't know how it is today in Jewish custom. If you think of like Timothy, Paul's son of the faith, mother was Jewish, father was Greek. He's considered a Jew because you know who the mama is. You don't know who the daddy is for sure. And so Sarah's named as Isaac's mother to make it clear. Verse 4, that Abraham circumcised his son Isaac when he was 8 days old, as God had commanded him. Now, Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born to him. Sarah said, God has made laughter for me. Everyone who hears will laugh with me. Not at me, but with me. And Isaac's name, of course, means laughter. Verse 7, she said, who would have said to Abraham that Sarah would nurse children? Yet I have borne him a son in his old age. Now the child grew and was weaned, which would be about 2 years of age. And Abraham made a great feast on the day that Isaac was weaned. Now Sarah saw the son of Hagar, the Egyptian, whom she had borne to Abraham, mocking. What's the son's name? Ishmael. Who's his mama? Hagar. Ishmael was about, I believe, 14 when Isaac was born. 2 years have passed. He's 16. Kind of keep that in the back of your mind as we finish out this chapter. So, Ishmael, who is the oldest of Abraham's children, oldest son, is making fun of his baby brother. Baby brother. Verse 10, therefore, Sarah, she said to Abraham, drive out this maid and her son, for the son of this maid shall not be an heir with my son Isaac. What's the irony in that? Anybody see it? Whose idea was it for Abraham to conceive a child with Hagar? It was Sarah's. It's like, well, you made your bed lie in it, kind of, but not going to work that way. But you can understand why she would feel that way. Isaac's hers. Isaac is the son of the promise. Get rid of this one. Verse 11, this is how the daddy felt. The matter distressed Abraham greatly because of Ishmael, his son. But God said to Abraham, do not be distressed because of the lad and your maid. Whatever Sarah tells you, listen to her, for through Isaac your descendants shall be named. Now, if Abraham had listened to if Abraham had listened to God when Sarah said, take Hagar, he wouldn't be in this mess now. He didn't. He listened to Sarah. Now he's listening to God and says, okay. Verse 13, and the son of your maid, Hagar, I will make a nation also because he is your descendant. Muslims today will trace themselves back to Abraham through Ishmael. They don't count Isaac. They only worry about him. Verse 14, so Abraham rose early in the morning, took bread and a skin of water and gave them to Hagar, putting them on her shoulder, and gave her the boy, 16-year-old now, and sent her away, and she departed and wandered about in the wilderness of Beersheba, which I believe is the southern part of modern-day Israel. Verse 15, when the water in the skin was used up, she left the boy under one of the bushes. Then she went and sat down opposite him about a bow shot away. I don't know how far a bow shot would be, but it's not a couple feet, but it's not a mile away either. For she said, do not let me see the boy die. And she sat opposite him and lifted up her voice and wept. Same thing any mama would do. 17, God heard the lad crying, and the angel of God called to Hagar from heaven and said to her, what's the matter with you? Hagar, do not fear, for God has heard the voice of the lad where he is. Remember, God had already promised Hagar before Ishmael was born that he would be the father of another or great nation. God always keeps his promises. 18, arise, lift up the lad and hold him by the hand, for I will make a great nation of him. Then God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water. She went, she filled the skin with water, gave it to the lad to drink. God was with the lad, and he grew, and he lived in the wilderness, and he became an archer. He lived in the wilderness of Paran. Now you're getting down towards Paran, if I remember correctly. It's like, if you think about where Saudi Arabia is, getting down to the northern part of that. He lived in the wilderness of Paran. His mother took a wife for him from the land of Egypt. Where was Hagar from? Anybody remember? Egypt. Only natural. She's going to get him a wife. She goes back to her homeland. Verse 22, now it came about at that time that Abimelech and Phicol, the commander of his army, spoke to Abraham, saying, God is with you in all that you do. Now, therefore, swear to me here by God that you will not deal falsely with me or with my offspring or with my posterity, but according to the kindness I've shown to you, you shall show me into the land in which you have sojourned. I read that and I think, did he hear about how Abraham and his few people go and defeat the four kings that had already defeated the five? Had a little worry on his mind. He's pretty strong, even though he's few in numbers. 24, Abraham said, I swear it. 25, but Abraham complained to Abimelech because of the well water which the servants of Abimelech had seized. Abimelech said, I do not know who's done this thing. Neither did you tell me, nor did I hear of it until today. So Abraham took sheep and oxen, gave them to Abimelech, and the two of them made a covenant, an agreement. Abraham set 7 ewe lambs of the flock by themselves. Abimelech said to Abraham, what do these 7 ewe lambs mean, which you have set by themselves? He said, you shall take these 7 ewe lambs from my hand in order that it may be a witness to me that I dug this well. You take these 7, you're saying I dug this well. Verse 31, therefore he called that place Beersheba, because there was the two of them there. The two of them took an oath. So they made a covenant at Beersheba, and Abimelech, Phicol, the commander of his army, arose and returned to the land of the Philistines. Think of where Gaza is in Israel today. That's the land of the Philistines. Enemies of Israel, it seemed like forever. 33, Abraham planted a tamarisk tree at Beersheba, and there he called on the name of the Lord, the everlasting God. And Abraham sojourned in the land of the Philistines for many days. El Olam, everlasting God. I said, you see this anywhere? That means God. Think about Daniel. The El, God, any name that has this in it referring back to God. Elohim means everlasting God, because he's made this covenant with Abraham, and Abraham is worshiping God. He's calling on the name of God because he's the everlasting God. Now we're going to go on to 22, which to me is a very important chapter in Genesis. I hope to show you a few things in here. And so this is probably where we're in, just looking at the clock. So, Isaac's been born. We know up to 2. Now, I'm going to say for this chapter, Isaac is somewhere like 8, 9, 10 years old. And I'll explain why here in a moment. Some say he could have been as old as 16. So, we don't know. Like I said before, you read the Bible, you can read it in 5 minutes and think it happened in only a month or less. In reality, it could be years in between chapters, even verses. So, 22, verse 1 says, now it came about, after these things, God tested Abraham, the everlasting God, and that word there is important for this chapter, test. When y'all, whatever schooling you did, who liked taking tests? Anybody? That's a definite no. Testing can be about as much fun as, well, getting a shot, in my opinion. But God's going to test Abraham. Why do people get tested? Why do we have to take tests other than what the teacher says? See what you know. See, what'd you say, Jerry?
See how smart you are.
See how smart you are. Well,
to make sure the teacher has done the job.
Yeah, if you've learned what the teacher's taught. With God, when he tests us, and he does test us, it's not so much to see how much we know or how much we've learned or how smart we are, but how faithful are we? How strong is our faith? Because our faith, once we accept Christ, is not meant to be like this. If you were to graph our faith, beginning of that time to the time we go home, it's not meant to be like that. We're meant to grow. You know how we grow? Testing. And so, God says, I'm going to test Abraham. He doesn't tell Abraham this, though. So he said to him, Abraham. Abraham said, here I am. Common way of speaking back then. Verse 2, he said, Abraham, I want you to take your son, your only son, whom you love, Isaac, and go to the land of Moriah. So it's a test. He's going to go to the land of Moriah, and they'll be on Mount Moriah, as it's called. And offer him there as a burnt offering to me on the mountain of which I will tell you. That verse, does it remind you of any other father and son?
God.
Yeah. It's a foreshadowing. Abraham, I want you to take your only son whom you love. John 3:16. For God so loved the world, he sent his only begotten son. He sent him out of LOVE, love. And so here you have God saying, Abraham, I'm going to test you. I want you to take the life of your only son. He's going to send him to Moriah. Now, where's Mount Moriah? Anybody know? See how strong a Bible student everybody is. Anybody know where Mount Moriah is? Or was, however you want to look at it.
Is it where Christ was crucified?
Jerusalem. Jerusalem is not where Christ was crucified, but it is Jerusalem. 2 Chronicles chapter 3, verse 1. Solomon began to build the house of the Lord in Jerusalem on Mount Moriah, where the Lord had appeared to his father David at the place that David had prepared on the threshing floor of Onan the Jebusite. David, of course, wanted to take and build the temple, but God, through Nathan the prophet, said, no, you shed too much blood, your son will. And Solomon is the one that God chose to succeed David, and he's the one who built that temple on Mount Moriah. David later on, basically, it says he sinned against God because he wanted to count the people. And it comes back to him. God says, okay, you got three choices. Let me see if I can remember what they were. One was you can be attacked by your enemy. Two, I can send a plague, and I forget what the third one was. And David's answer was, I trust God, don't put me in the hands of an enemy. So God sends a plague. It's going through the land, and people are dying. In order to stop the plague, David is instructed, 1 Chronicles 21, angel of the Lord commanded Gad to say to David, and David should go up to and build an altar to the Lord on the threshing floor of Onan the Jebusite, which is located on Mount Moriah. Where's God sending Abraham? Where's the temple eventually built? Do you think God had a plan? Yeah. It's where, because, you read through and you find out, God says, I didn't choose any city or any one place for me, my temple. Of course, it was a tabernacle, a tent at first, to locate until Solomon. And he chose one place, Mount Moriah. That's where God is. You know what supposedly sits on Mount Moriah where the temple of God was built today? Dome of the Rock, an Islamic temple. Yeah. Some say that the Dome of the Rock is built because Jerusalem is basically, from what my understanding, is a lot of hills. They're saying that the Dome of the Rock is built here, but actually the Dome of Mount Moriah is to the side. They got their location off. I don't know. If you ever read the Left Behind series, I think that's what the author says, is this is where the temple was, and so they're rebuilding the temple and all that in Jerusalem. Point I simply want you to get is, God says, here's where I am. Mount Moriah. And it wasn't with Solomon, it wasn't where Jesus died, and of course, here you have God telling Abraham, you're going to sacrifice your only son on Mount Moriah, and God sacrifices his only son on Mount Moriah. So you see the foreshadowing and the parallelism here between the two, father and son. All right. Any questions before I go any further? Confused everybody? Got it. All right. Verse 3. So Abraham rose early in the morning, saddled his donkey, took two of his young men with him and Isaac his son, and he split wood for the burnt offering and rose, and he went to the place which God had told him. Notice, Abraham doesn't question God. He doesn't say, God, now wait a minute. That's my only son. The question I have as I read this is, because it says he got early in the morning, is, did he tell Sarah what God said to do? Because mamas, you'd have had something to say, wouldn't you? Either way, notice where Abraham's faith is. Trust God. Verse 4, on the third day, Abraham raised his eyes and he saw the place from a distance. Now, I read, and I forget how far that was. I want to say it was only, here it is,